Let's bring in Kendall Coffee, former federal prosecutor and former U.S. attorney. Krishna Patel rejoins us, former assistant U.S. attorney, also worked under James Comey. Alana Skor, congressional reporter for Politico. Thanks all three. We'll start with you on this, Kendall. What do you make of what the president said?
Well, I think the president's comments are sort of consistent to what he's been saying all along. We can all judge for ourselves whether he's under investigation, but there's certainly a lot of people very, very close to him and a lot of information that suggests that that's the case. But so far, there's no reason to believe that, for example, Paul Manafort has anything incriminating to say, and some of the other people that we're learning a lot more about, such as Papadopylos and Carter Page. Nor do we know if they have anything incriminating to say about President Trump. The one thing that I think is going to be really critical, at some point President Trump is going to be interviewed, and one of the things that will be very, very critical is whether at the end of what could be a very long, wide-ranging interview, the special counsel concludes that President Trump has said anything that is false or misleading.
Talking about Carter Page, let's play a little bit about what he said on CNN.
You say you only met with academics, essentially, when you were on your trip to Russia?
And a few business people who I'd known for over a decade, yeah.
So, Krishna, I think we're hearing from here, Carter Page, it was a non-meeting meeting. Whether it's a non-meeting meeting or a real meeting, what does this mean legally?
Legally, one of the things that Bob Mueller and his team are going to look at is why was Carter Page meeting with Russians at all in Russia, and what did it have to do with the campaign? And they're going to look to find out the contents of those meetings and then begin to corroborate those meetings. We know from the Papadopylos conviction that when George Papadopylos went to go meet with the Russians, it was about getting dirt on Hillary Clinton. It would be a little strange that one person went to get dirt on Hillary Clinton and the other person just met with academics to talk about we're not sure what.
And he's also saying here, Alana, that there's a lot more that's going to be coming out. We've certainly seen that on this investigation and other issues from this White House and the investigation ongoing about the Russia connection question. What do you think he means? Because he's saying a lot of different things, contradicting himself in some cases here, Carter Page. Alana?
Absolutely. Carter Page has changed his story repeatedly, and I think lawmakers know that. I think lawmakers are very confused as to why he abruptly decided to withhold documents from them on the House Intelligence Committee. And I think as a result, they're going to be treating him with kind of kid gloves and a shaker of salt, if you will, going forward.
The question might be, though, here, Alana, what might he tip them off to, right, as he's speaking with the different investigations on the Hill, the House Intel Committee specifically in this case, but also Robert Mueller?
I mean, the key is going to be who else in the campaign knew about his trip to Moscow, and for that matter, also about George Papadopoulos' trip to Moscow. That really is the key here, because you have the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, coming out and saying I was unaware of any continued discussion of this. But Sessions was the leader of the National Security Advisory Group that both Page and Papadopoulos sat on. So there's a very small universe of officials who really could have known about these trips.
Yeah, and as we look at this, Kendall, if indeed this email that we're talking about did reach Jeff Sessions' email box, and he is saying what he said during sworn testimony, does he face, as we were talking about a little bit earlier, some legal jeopardy here, and what might that be?
Well, the temperature's turning up on Jeff Sessions. I don't think so far it's indictable. If you look at, for example, the level of falsifications in the Papadopoulos interview, that's extreme stuff. On the other hand, anyone going forward who is being confronted for misleading testimony by the Department of Justice is going to say, yeah, but your Attorney General doesn't have such a good memory either. And that's not a pretty picture for our system.
Yeah, does misremembering work here, Krishna?
I don't, it's going to be up to a grand jury ultimately if this is a question of misremembering or if this is a question of false testimony. I mean, what is the intent? And when I go back to the Russia amnesia, there seems to be a consistent pattern of not recalling information when it comes to Russia. It really does appear to be that way, and that is both harmful, I think, to what is happening directly with Jeff Sessions, and it's also harmful, as was indicated, to the fact that our top law enforcement officer for the Department of Justice just seems to lack credibility.
When we look at, and you're watching us and reporting on it, Alana, as we watch Carter Page come to microphones, and then come to microphones, and then come to microphones, I'm sure the Trump campaign is going, please, stop coming to microphones.
Absolutely, but the truth is they have no control over Carter Page.
Yeah.
He's at this point a very loose cannon, and all they can do is watch and hope he doesn't bury them too badly.
Bury them too badly. And as we look forward to the next step here in this, there is one question, Christian, I want to ask you about. Papadopylos, which Kendall was bringing up, why unseal his indictment?
I think there might have been several reasons to unseal it. You know, first and foremost, I think what was very interesting about it was the fact that he was proactively cooperating. I think Mueller sent a lot of messages by unsealing it. I think he told the world, you know, here is something that nobody knew about, nobody had speculated about. But more importantly, I think it was to say, if you lie, we're going to convict you. I also think he's sending a message to say, you can either get the Manafort treatment or you can get the Papadopylos special in terms of your cooperation. It's how you are going to be treated very differently in terms of how you choose to cooperate. And, you know, part of what's going to happen now is the underlying chess game of whether or not Manafort, who's clearly seeking a pardon, if that's where Trump is going to go. And I think Mueller is teasing some of that out now.
Kendall, if he's teasing some of that out, is he saying, hey, look out, Ty Cobb, I've got more Papadopyloses? If I said that properly.
Absolutely, he is. And even if you call Papadopylos a small fry, sometimes the small fries can fry the higher-ups, depending on what they know. And right now, there are going to be a lot of nervous people in Washington.
What are you watching, Kendall, in terms of the next step for Mueller?
I keep watching Michael Flynn because of all the people that seem to be clearly, frankly, bluntly indictable. He's center stage, and he's also strategically placed to know a lot about Russia. And then finally, the question of what was Trump's motive in trying to allegedly tell Comey, please go easy on that guy. Was Trump trying to protect a good guy and a public servant, or was Trump trying to protect something about himself? And that's a question that Michael Flynn should be able to answer.
Oh, you brought up the big one there, Kendall. Alana, that is the $64 billion question. Mike Flynn, is he flipped?
I mean, it's really tough to tell, but I will say from the congressional perspective, Mike Flynn is in trouble as well.
Also in trouble. So, Krishna, that is, you folks in the legal space are thinking about that. Mike Flynn really is at the core of potentially, since he's indictable, as Alana was saying, at least from the Hill and what they're looking at, as well as from certainly Mueller's seat. Has he been turned, Krishna? And if he is, this really is saying a lot more than Papadopylos and his unsealing of his indictment.
I would agree with that. I mean, I don't think anyone knows. Certainly one wants to speculate. We haven't heard anything about Mike Flynn. And as was mentioned, he seems easily a target, as easy as Manafort was on certain things, particularly things like FARA, right? The failure to register. And, you know, what Mueller has made clear is you lie to us, you don't, you know, follow certain rules, we're going to come after you now.
Senator Al Franken, he wants answers. He's saying he has more questions to this. And Franken had a letter to Jeff Sessions giving a deadline for answering a list of his question on the Russia meetings. And here it is. He says, the American people deserve a complete and accurate accounting of the facts. Please respond in writing to the following questions by Friday, November 10th, 2017. So then there are the questions that he does ask, and he's got basically till next weekend. Can the Senator, Kendall, do this? Can he demand these questions and the U.S. Attorney General must answer?
Well, he can demand. The Attorney General doesn't have to simply respond to a letter, but he ought to. He's the highest-ranking law enforcement official in this country, and he should be beyond any kind of question. And right now, there's some questions.
And Krishna, how might the U.S. Attorney General respond to this? Kendall saying that he should respond. As you look at this occurrence in the past where you do have an elected official requesting information from an Attorney General, what might that tell us about what will happen in this case?
My guess is, you know, if he is someone who has brought up executive privilege before, I don't think appropriately, but he certainly brought it up. I think you might start seeing him hide behind that. I think these are very difficult questions for him to answer. He has not been truthful. He has not been truthful with Congress on the Russia issue.
And you're just looking at more, not been truthful so far based on what we understand. And Alana, last 15 seconds to you. I'm sorry to do this to you. It certainly shows that electeds on the Hill are becoming more and more impatient with this process.
Keep an eye on Chairman Chuck Grassley. He takes oversight very seriously, and he does have the power to compel answers from Sessions, and he says that he's looking at this, so keep an eye on him.
Okay, Grassley is the one we'll watch because Alana tells us to. Thank you so much, Alana, Krishna, and Kendall. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Next, the